It's roughly 170,000 years ago. You're a human, barely recognizable as one, but still. You wake up on the African savanna, and at no point do you think, you know what would complete this morning? Pants. And yet here we are. Billions of people every morning putting on pants or skirts or whatever that thing is you've worn for 3 days and are now calling loungewear because that sounds intentional. Clothes are so baked into human existence that we literally arrest people for not wearing them. We built an entire legal system around, please put something on. So why? When did this start? And why did we do it when basically no other animal did? Dogs don't wear clothes. Elephants, which are smarter than most people you went to high school with, have never once thought, I need a jacket. The honest answer is we don't know exactly when. The more interesting answer involves lice. Yes, lice. Stick with it. Here's the puzzle to start with. Humans are basically the only large mammal on Earth that's nearly hairless. Gorillas, chimps, bears, wolves, horses, all covered. And then there's us, smooth, patchy, weirdly pink, looking like we used to have fur and made some choices. The leading theory is thermoregulation. As our ancestors moved onto open grasslands and started running long distances to hunt, thick fur became a liability, so we shed it and became, instead, elite sweating machines. Humans have something like 2 to 4 million sweat glands, more than almost any other animal alive. Great in the heat, considerably less great at 40 below zero in Central Asia with nothing but a rock in your wits. That's where clothes come in. Except warmth probably isn't the original reason. Here's the problem. Genetic evidence suggests humans started wearing clothes somewhere between 100,000 and 170,000 years ago. But modern humans didn't migrate out of Africa in real numbers until around 70,000 years ago. So clothing shows up tens of thousands of years before humans ever went anywhere cold. Something else was going on. And the evidence for it comes from, of all things, lice. Researchers mapping the genetic history of human lice found something strange. Humans carry 2 genetically distinct kinds: head lice, which live in your hair, and body lice, which live only in clothing, in the seams, the folds, the fabric. Body lice cannot survive on bare skin. They need fabric to live in. Which means the moment body lice genetically split off from head lice is essentially the moment humans started wearing clothes consistently enough to create a habitat for a parasite. That split happened somewhere between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. A parasitic insect accidentally preserved the earliest evidence of human fashion. The lice know when we got dressed before we do. So if it wasn't the cold, what was clothing actually for first? One theory is simple physical protection from sun, insects, thorns, abrasion. Not glamorous, but probably true. The more interesting theory is social signaling. Humans are obsessively social, obsessed with hierarchy, constantly communicating who we are and what group we belong to with posture, voice, hairstyle, and, it turns out, quite possibly what we drape over our bodies. There's evidence our ancestors were using ochre for body decoration as far back as 200,000 years ago, before the lice evidence for clothing even begins. We may have been painting ourselves before we were dressing ourselves. And once you're wearing a hide, you start thinking about which hide and what it says about you. Welcome to the first fashion industry. Population? A band of Homo sapiens arguing over who gets the leopard skin. For most of early human history, clothing was rough, a hide draped over the shoulders tied with a cord. Then, around 50,000 years ago, something changes. Researchers start finding bone needles with actual eyes bored through them, built for stitching fitted seamed clothing. The oldest confirmed one was found in Siberia, made from a hollow bird bone. That's not just survival instinct, that's engineering. And it mattered, because in Siberia, 50,000 years ago, in a glacial winter, you do not survive without properly fitted clothes. And it wasn't just us. Neanderthals were processing hides and using tools built for leather work well before they ever met modern humans, and their bodies show cold climate adaptations. In that same Siberian cave, alongside the needle, researchers found decorated ornaments left by the Denisovans, a third human lineage we only learned existed in 2010. Multiple human species, independently, arrived at clothing. Which raises the question, is this a human thing or just a smart, cold, social primate thing? Here's the truly strange part, though. If clothing were purely practical, every culture would have converged on the single most efficient design for its climate and stopped there. That's not what happened. Instead, humans made clothing mean something everywhere, almost immediately. Priests wore different things than warriors. Rulers wore things no one else could. The dead were buried in specific garments. Some of the oldest dyed textile fragments ever found were colored for no functional reason at all. Someone just decided plain wasn't good enough. We use clothing as language to say I belong to this group. I hold this rank. I am mourning. I am dangerous. I am sacred. No other animal does that. And then warmth became a matter of life and death anyway. Between roughly 120,000 and 70,000 years ago, Earth went through brutal glacial cycles. Africa dried up, food collapsed, and the human population may have crashed to as few as 10,000 people. We nearly went extinct. For the groups that pushed north into colder land afterward, clothing stopped being a signal and became the line between living and dying. The ones with fitted, layered, stitched garments survived cold that killed everyone else. That skill got passed down generation after generation, and it's a real part of how humans ended up on every continent on Earth. So why did ancient humans start wearing clothes? For all of the reasons, really, arriving in overlapping waves. It started as basic protection, became a social signal almost immediately, turned into a survival technology when the climate turned hostile, and eventually became an art form, an industry, a language. Given who we are, social, status obsessed, freezing half the time, it was probably inevitable. You did a version of this exact thing this morning. Whatever you put on, you made choices, conscious or not, about who you are and what you wanted to say. You're doing exactly what someone on the African savanna was doing, wrapped in ochre-stained hide, figuring out how to say something about themselves to the people standing around the same fire. 150,000 years of human history, and the thing that connects you to them directly, without interruption, is the simple fact that you got dressed this morning. We get cold, we get creative, we get dressed, and then we spend the rest of our lives complaining we have nothing to wear. Would you go back and live completely naked? Let me know in the comments. See you next time.